We're going live as we speak, and we're live. Okay. Our next guest on the podcast is probably the only other person. Our next guest on the podcast is probably the only other person I would trust to edit a podcast if I didn't have Cliff. He's a former colleague and current friend who's currently working the news beat over at Android Police, and he's probably the only guest that I've had on with real working knowledge of actual radio broadcasts. So he's instantly gets some street cred in my book. He's big, he's loud, and he's actually worse with money. And he's actually worse with money than Cliff. Welcome to the podcast, Jules Wang. How you doing?
So, first of all, I love prodding cows if you want to keep everything in. And second of all, you based that off of the one screenshot I sent, and then you had to blur it for a story because it included my bank account statement. And it was...
I'm referring to the fact that you once bought me a phone just for shits and giggles.
That's it.
Like, here's a phone and it's yours and you don't have to send it anywhere. I'm like, okay.
I love giving gifts.
I still have that phone, by the way. Well, really? and I mean, and actually your gift giving
G6?
It was a G6, yeah. You're prodigious, and the G Watch as well, which I eventually did send back to you because I said, open invitation anytime you want this back. And like a year and a half later, you're like,
I lost it at a hotel.
Okay. But I should say your prodigious gift giving is kind of a theme for like anybody who's ever met you, because like I've heard about stuff that you've gotten for Hayato, and I think David and Mel, probably Michael Fisher. Like, I can't even imagine what you would do for people that you currently work with.
I mean, I gave each of them $25 gift cards to
no, I'm talking about like devices back in like the late teens that you were like, had like way too much money and you're like, I don't know what to do with this, so here, have a phone.
I mean, the thing is that I had way fewer colleagues. Like I had a smaller circle of people that I could give.
Very true.
To, and now, with a larger team, it's like, I can only give them coffee gift cards. So it's like,
right.
Because otherwise I'd be spending out of my nose.
I understand.
Well, Jules also bought me a gift once.
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
I don't remember what it is, though. So you're going to have to tell me.
It was the original, like, OG Hot Ones hot sauce.
Oh.
Yeah?
Was it the OG? Or was it the
or maybe it was the one right after that. It was the one that came in before they started partnering and doing like the same bottle that they do for everything. And it was a little tiny, almost looked like a vase once you got all the hot sauce out of it.
It might have been delicious. like that extra spicy one if it was like that tiny or something.
Yeah,
or maybe it was just a sampler, or maybe I don't know. But I do remember that at least I gave you some Hot Ones hot sauce, and I hope you tasted the hell out of those.
It's funny. I actually just bought a friend of mine a bottle of Da Bomb, because that's the one that screws everybody up. And the reason I did it was because this dude, like, he eats ghost peppers without even thinking about it. Takes like full packets of those hot peppers and like dumps them on pizza. And I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, fine. Here.
This is just pure capsaicin and hate and bitterness.
Well,
like that's the thing.
It's made with concentrate. I know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's crazy, but like you watch the show and like that's the one that always messes up everything.
It's not meant to be anything. It's not meant to be flavorful. It's not meant to be. It's just meant to hurt.
No, it is meant to set your tonsils on fire.
Destroy.
That is it's like battery acid basically.
I remember it's meant to send you to your grave. Like battery acid and pennies.
I've never had battery acid, but I know what that tastes like, so maybe I could use that as a standard.
That being said, I would like to extend the invitation to both you and to both of you. If you want a bottle of Da Bomb, I will buy it for you.
I've had it. It's
have you? Okay.
Yes. It's one of the sauces that I carried in my backpack for a while.
I don't mind hot sauce, but I don't like having heat just for the sake of having heat. I want there to be some flavor to it.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
But even that, I'm still kind of like a mild to medium kind of guy. I don't think I could even approach like the back half of that lineup of hot sauce.
I'll tell you what, that Dirty Dicks that they had in the first few seasons, that's a pretty good spread. It's I think it's they got peach apricot stuff going on in the one that they featured. I definitely tasted that out.
I mean, honestly, Jules, if I had known that you were such a hot sauce aficionado, we could have made this like a Hot Ones like tribute podcast, and we could have all just eaten hot wings.
I would have had to spend money on all the hot sauces, and I don't have any place to store them here.
Well, that's true.
And then the wings situation.
Well, no, I mean, I would have had to send them to you. That's how this works. But
that's
but yeah, I mean, had I known, you know what? The next time you're on the show, I guess we're gonna have a Hot Ones Beyond the Doud edition. Well, because I mean, like I don't know if you've listened to the Beyond the Doud episodes, but I try to have a theme wherever possible. I had no idea that this could have been the theme. So
with me, it's like a tumbleweed. You just don't know where I'm going, and you don't know where the product is until you've done it.
I honestly could not have put it any better myself. So thank you very much. So Jules, Beyond the Doud is kind of about, it is basically, this is going to be the Jules show. We're here to kind of talk about you. Because I think I said it during the intro, you're a character. I mean, you've always been a character, and you're just so damn lovable and like you said, like unpredictable, and it's just so much fun, like following your Instagram feed and just, I'll be honest, trying to figure out what the hell you're talking about when you put captions on pictures. It's kind of a game, actually. So
I kind of tend to keep it obscure and stuff because I don't think anything I do is inherently interesting.
I mean, you'll take a picture of like a subway car, and the caption will be 407 years ago, and we're like, what? Where? What?
Well, maybe there's some I don't know, the subway car. There was that one where I was at the Brooklyn Transit Museum, and there was like, I'll take this. I would like to install new sofas on the subway car if you gave me the money to do so, or something.
There you go.
So
there you go. Like, and actually, as we speak, is there a way I can do this right? If I can share my screen here, I'm going to try to do it. Screen share. All right, what am I doing? Do I have to click on that? Yeah, I've never done this before, so this is a new thing.
It now. Hey,
so here is Jules' Instagram feed.
Yeah, a lot of drone shots nowadays.
Yeah, you flying a drone? What are you flying these days?
Mavic Mini. And
nice.
Yeah, I've kept those. Admittedly, I had to get a couple of replacements. A couple of replacement drones, or like a couple of replacement rotors, or like what? Drones, the whole machines. I've screwed up a couple times, to say the least.
All right, so I mean, so here's your lunch. Clearly,
well, that's so that was in Flushing. You're talking about the one where there's a plastic bag,
and you're talking about the city, not the verb, right?
I'm not talking about the verb. I'm talking about.
I just wanted to make sure.
The neighborhood in Queens. It's a heavily Asian population. I actually tagged that picture on my Twitter with the phrase or the sentence. This is my being a good Asian quota for the day. Phil.
Well, and Tall Schmo chimes in, plastic bag, boxes, train, building, which honestly I kind of thought was your caption there for a minute.
That's Joe Feedwa at his best.
Okay.
What was it? How to review or something?
I like this shot, actually. You've got some nice perspective going here. And I'm really glad that this is a video podcast because people are actually going to be able to see these. But
you still have to think of the listeners that are just doing this ears only.
All right, but you've got a shot like shooting down it looks like street level.
Yep, that's Commonwealth Avenue in Boston, BU. Okay. It's on the BU bridge with the green line, the B line tracks, and you're looking straight towards the Boston skyline. There, I described it as perfectly as possible. There's some clouds.
I didn't even I didn't even realize that Boston had street level trains.
Oh yeah.
So okay,
We
that's cool.
we got those trolleys.
Okay, all right, that's legit. And then we've got a cab. And this New York, is this New York?
This is somewhere, I forget which street. It's like we came in. It was all right. So my dad is going to move to New York sometime in the next several months.
Okay.
Because of his work.
Because he hates money.
Because he hates money, and he's also going to make money. But and he's one of those weird types where he'll just move to the city. And he'll, because, it saves on commute, and then come back every weekend, because if it's close enough, then he'll come back for the weekend.
Good enough.
To, hang out.
Oh, pretty shot here.
Yeah.
So, like, are you tweeting these on Twitter? Or, like, I'm not seeing any.
Not really.
We started this based on the premise that you had weird captions, and I haven't seen a single caption for any of these photos yet. So, like,
it's been a long time since I've actually decided, like, let's screw up a caption for this one.
Okay. No real side effects from my second shot. Okay, well, that's legit. So, although no real side effects from my second shot, fortunate to say. That said, I've been on a constant allergy attack this past week, and you are at the Baseball Hall of Fame.
No, that's Gillette Stadium. That's Patriots.
Oh, that's Patriots. Okay, still connect those dots for me, because I'm not really sure how.
So I'm not sure if you've realized this season, if you've had allergies, if you know any allergy sufferers, but it's been a particularly bad season.
Right.
You can read up on the news why, but it was not a good week in terms of just suffering through several attacks, and just the whole nasal stuff up, sinuses going all runny, and it just
waiting for the word Patriots.
Patriots.
That's what I mean by connect the dots. Is why this caption with this photo.
So that's where I got the shot.
There we go.
Place.
Okay.
Gillette Stadium is one of the mass vaccination sites in Massachusetts.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
there's a couple others.
And this
is Fenway Park too.
And this is 3 weeks ago, so congratulations on being fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, all right,
one of these days I'll visit you, and then we can do this live.
We're gonna hop off the Instagram train here, because it's fun, but
sooner or later you'll encounter my nudes, and then that'll be embarrassing for everyone.
Well, I mean, more for you, but
the terms of service would be, that's a different
thing. And I also did cut it off right before we got to this photo that says how is Babby formed. So maybe I should have kept it for one more, but all right, no, we're gonna close that.
Well,
we're gonna just move on.
When you see it in the New York Times font, and I decided to scrape out the New York Times logo, but it's just having that in a white block.
Have you ever seen that video of the guy who goes through Yahoo Answers and all the people that are asking about being pregnant, but they're all spelling pregnant wrong?
Pregante.
Oh,
great.
Pregante.
One of my favorite posts from Yahoo Answers, which is, by the way, how that quote comes, where that quote comes
I'm
from,
positive,
as well as pregnant and all that stuff, is
pregnant.
Determining the value, how much is a loaf of bread, not bread, Brad.
No, it's my favorite.
Really? I was determining the average value, the average net worth, the salary of a man named Brad. We have to find.
Oh my god, that's amazing! I would love to read.
How much of a volume that takes up of loaf, and maybe the weight or something like that. Personally, my favorite sample would, if there had to be a sample of a Brad that I would want, it would be Brad Leone of Bon Appetit. I just love the guy. He's just awesome.
And what do you know? Here is the question. Wait, we're gonna go back into sharing.
Oh boy.
Share screen. Share. How much would a loaf of bread cost?
Oh, it's on answers.com.
Oh yeah, and there's related questions. How much did a loaf of bread cost in 1950? How much was a loaf of bread worth in 1975?
See, once you have that, you just you circle the bandwagons. It's over. It's just.
But what I'm not seeing is a cost analysis of someone named Brad, so that's a little unfortunate. But
Yeah, I think that might have been at another place.
Yeah, it's probably a Yahoo Answers thing. All right, anyway, let's stop sharing and go back. Go. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, Jules.
Oh,
because that like made my day. And I'm going to switch back to this view so people don't.
So
see my
there's so many
the
rabbit holes that
oh my god,
just bring up.
Oh, I'm so glad you didn't mention this like at the beginning of the month when I had to be productive. So but anyway,
be productive. Is that a thing that we do now?
Well, it's a thing that I kind of have to do because I got a new job and all that. So, but Jules, I want to talk a little bit about your background because, as I mentioned during the intro, you're one of the few people that I know that actually has like real radio experience. Now, from what I recall, it's college radio.
It's only college radio,
which is a flavor of radio, but still, I just wanted to. I just wanted to talk about that because you have origins. Your origin story in tech comes from like your origins in audio. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, where did you get your start with the radio broadcasts?
Well, you say college, so I think it's better to frame it.
Frame it however you want. This is your story.
Yeah. Being in college and, I'm just a journalism major. I'm still trying to find myself as a person. High school and even just, grade school is just kind of rough in terms of finding who I am and like who I want to be.
Right.
And so I still couldn't find where my place was. Emerson College in Boston being I was in their communications school, and so I figured, what, I'm going to try maybe TV, maybe documentary, maybe all these sorts of things. And I went to every single program. Here's the student run video program or studio program. Didn't really work out, didn't really find my clique, and it wasn't until my last year there where I just figured out, you know what, I'll do WERS. Why not? 88.9. Why not try that out? Because I had a nascent NPR affection towards NPR at that point. I developed it, and WERS is not NPR in that way. It's more music driven. It's still public radio. We're still public licensee, or at least licensed to a board that is nonprofit.
Right.
It was just a full-blown year of trials and tribulations there, and I enjoyed every minute of it because apparently there was this major shift in this organizational structure where they were just culling a whole bunch of paid student positions, and there were fewer. As a result, there were fewer volunteers that were willing to kind of help out and lend their longevity to the platform. So I came on. The operations manager was like, "Where were you? You have the pipes, and also you have the personnel, and you have the technical, and you're able to do everything." I was called in at midnight at one point to switch computers for an on-air play out. I was able to do that. That was fun until secure. For some reason they had to cut back on security and lock the building from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So don't tell them, but I actually did sneak in a couple of overnight live shifts. So
okay. Well, if I remember correctly, you used to also do the Pocket Now Weekly from that broadcast booth, right?
I used my position at WERS to kind of, I was on the air and I was doing all these other things, but I was also kind of trying to figure out where I wanted to go after college. And I kind of just, threw out a bone to Michael Fisher because up until now, or up until then in 2014, 2015, I didn't know, or I don't know when I realized it was that he was around my neighborhood. He was in Somerville, Massachusetts, and I was around Boston. And no, it was that video. It was a Samsung Fit or Gear Fit or something. Samsung Health. Like he was demonstrating the features, and he was shooting the video solo, and it was like showing off all these places that I recognized and knew. And it not only that, he was doing it by himself. So presumably, for these long walk on, walk off shots, he had to set the camera up and then, go all the way to his point, walk over. And
pray it doesn't fall over in the meantime.
Pray it doesn't fall over, and then, and then reset the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, you need help? Like, I'm around, I'm available. I got all these skills on Twitter. And it was like, no, but you know what? Let's talk in the DMs. And we had a nice conversation in the North End at Joe's American Grill about what Pocket Now could offer for us, or for me, and for what I could offer them. And between helping out on videos and producing the podcast, technically at first, and then more editorially later on. Mm-hmm. That's how things ended up. We got to play around with one of the fancy studios that we have for student podcasts and student radio programs for a time. And also we got to
Oh no, I was gonna say, and it's funny because like when I think about like what Pocket Now has unleashed upon the technology world, you've got
your fault. It's your fault, Tony.
Seriously, I mean, Tony needs to be Tony needs to be on the show first of all. But like just because just going down the roster of people that were around, like when you and I were there, obviously there's you and me, but Michael Fisher, Stephen Shank, Adam Lane is still at Pocket Now, isn't that right?
Yep. And there was Hayato Huseman for a hot second before he went to Android Central, and now he's at MKBHD.
Yep. Nice, and like, nice but I also like not
Taylor?
Only that. I'm sorry,
Taylor Martin,
who's
right? Doing I forget what
he's got.
It was everyday carry, and then backwoods. I forget the rest of it. Backward something.
Was it? Is it still the Mod channel? Because he made Mod spell out something else, and I don't remember what it was. But like a lot of outdoor stuff. So, but Taylor Martin, he was hired the same day I was, and he got to go on the podcast and introduce himself, and they said, "Oh, by the way, we hired Adam Doud too," which was a little anticlimactic. But hey, that's fine. I'm forgettable. I get that. So anyway,
we also had a thing at like it was like a part-time between Branch Fire.
Well, actually, no. When I was hired, I was still at Career Education, which was online university that nobody should go to.
Well, there you go.
Well, and the main reason they shouldn't go there is because, like, I'm not working there anymore, so I can't help at all.
There you go.
And because, like, next to Facebook, they're also a crappy company run by terrible people. So, moving on, though. No, but, like, what's funny is, like, how you randomly reach out on Twitter and say, hey, maybe I can help you out. That's not too far away from, like, my origin story with Pocket Now, where I sent out this stupid, ridiculous email that Anton never should have even read, let alone replied to. And here we both are, and I think it's pretty cool. So you've been with Android Police now for how long?
Coming up, actually, more than 2 years.
I was gonna say 2 years, 2 months, pushing 3, right? Oh, okay, all right. So, So, what are you doing over at Android Police?
For the most part, up until this year, it's been mainly just hits of news,
Okay.
type of digging in on the occasional feature. I've gotten myself into more reviews lately, and I'm
Nice.
trying to figure out. We've been sort of in an ongoing transition at AP to expand our base and find more of an audience. So
More is always better.
indeed. I'm not sure how much I'm able to say about it. So, but in
Oh
generally
yeah.
speaking, basically trying to expand my beat in general.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. That's an exciting transition. Now, is Android Police your like your only full-time gig? Do you have any like side projects or anything like that?
Not
Like,
really. It's just AP is pretty much my only thing. I ideally, I've been honest with other people about this, so honestly, so I'll say this here. I kind of really wish I had another side gig
okay.
for like more of the technical stuff that's not writing,
Okay.
because I'm getting tired of the words, of seeing my words come out and just like
The struggle is real, trust me. But
having to do that.
you know
But yeah,
what? It comes time to pay the bills, and you kind of get over that.
mhm.
So, but like, what would you ideally like to do? Are you thinking like video? Are you thinking audio? Are you thinking podcasting,
Yeah,
radio? What's
anything that gets me. I think ideally anything that gets me out of this chair and into
okay?
the real world.
Can relate.
Yeah, not just not just an office, but like an actual journalism thing. But I mean, other than that, just any sort of change would be nice. So I've applied to a couple of coffee shops. They haven't come back to me, so there's that.
It's
Um,
rough out there, man. It is very rough. I mean, like, I've been freelancing since 2017, and like, finding the jobs that are not sitting around someplace and banging out words is very hard. And like, even when you expand outside the technology realm, which I've dabbled with too. It's just man, it's just rough out there. And
indeed.
like, I have a working theory that job searching is the one area where the internet has not only not made it better, but it has made it demonstrably worse.
Mm.
And like, it just because like, instead of 20 applicants, companies are getting literal thousands of applicants. And like, you've got people that are saying like, what the hell, I'll apply to this even though it's nothing even close to where where my expertise is. And it's just it's terrible, and I hate it. And
With the advent of these more complex job marketplaces, you find yourself having to create more boxes and trying to see which ones you fill, and it's easier to sort out. You turn everyone to marbles that get sorted through this machine, and you don't really have a chance to like the quote unquote good old days where you're able to meet eye to eye and
you
just
can sell
see
yourself.
the whole entity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so have you added the 3 extra pages of white words to your resume yet, so that you can get caught up in the search filters that companies are using?
I don't play that game, so I do not know what those white words would be. So I'm just, LinkedIn is basically my way of getting auto-filled resume without having to do too much work.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's legit. I do dig that particular feature. So all right, so let's get back to reviewing. Like, what is actually let's just talk more holistically. Now that I think about it, philosophically speaking, like, what got you into technology, and specifically mobile technology, and even more specifically like Android. So I mean, because you're coming from an audio video background in college, what made you get specific with mobile technology, or was it just that happens to be what the guy who you offered to help at Pocket Now happened to be doing? So I mean, was there an interest there, or?
There was a latent interest. Part of it was that it was coming from not having had a cell phone through grade school. I had to pay my own way starting in high school to get one. And it was a cheap little, it was Samsung Galaxy and Meyer from Metro PCS. It was $100. A little tiny thing. I think it's the SEH R820 or something like that, if you want to look it up. Galaxy and Meyer. But yeah, it was a cheap little thing, ran gingerbread, and it was like, I could probably do better than this right now.
Okay.
In 2012. So I kind of just started looking up more options, and that was the media that I got immersed in. And all these numbers, all these facets of the smartphone experience, I could probably see myself talking about those things.
Nice.
That was the one, and so I sort of got more related to it, and that sort of developed my interest for a couple of years, running up until what I was able to do at ERS.
At ERS,
Yep.
What is?
WERS.
Emerson. Wait, what is ERS? What am I missing?
The Emerson radio station.
Okay. You mentioned earlier today. I apologize. I missed those letters. That's okay. I'll cut that part out.
No. Keep everything in, and then you lose all sense of the gilded, or like you. It's like Stephen Colbert, where he doesn't. He loses all pretension. He's developed, just the sense of this is not important. Your dignity as in the moment is not important as, experiencing something new or entertaining someone, or just, it's great. Sometimes
it's those raw. Those raw emotions, those raw reactions that you get. Like you can tell it's not scripted, and that just elevates it in a certain way. So, yeah. All right. So if you had to, okay, rewind again. Cutting room floor.
It happens.
That's kind of how this works, but yeah. So like, if we're actually kind of coming up on the what are we on 32 half hour mark at this point, so we should probably start moving into if you had to move into like a different part of this industry or a different industry, like where do you see yourself? No, I don't want to say that. No, but like if you had your choice, if you could write your own ticket, would you stay in this industry, or would you move on to something maybe a little different, or like where would you like to be?
Honestly, the most obvious thing in my head right now is local journalism.
Okay,
I really feel like, especially in like smaller towns and cities where the money isn't there, and it's just sorry, I just saw a child abduction alert on my phone, and
that's important.
I'll just go back if you want. I think for me the most obvious thing in my head right now is local journalism, especially in smaller places where the newspaper might be just drained of resources. There's just very little money going into it, and I think it's still worthwhile though, because one, I think
you're willing to work cheap. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm willing to work cheap, but also if you let corruption, if you let certain things go under the radar there, I don't think it bodes well when you talk about larger cities and places where a lot of people live, because it's sometimes it's those negative trends or those positive trends that you find in smaller places, and then you can apply them to probably the rest of your viewing area, your state, or even the country or the world.
There's definitely a lot of underserved markets now. I think with the conglomerates purchasing up more and more regional and local newspapers. And so much is just being fed from Reuters and Associated Press, and even maybe on TV journalism. You have all those. I forget the name of the company. It begins with
Yeah,
an S,
so newspaper, the Gannett, and I think there was another chopping house basically where they were just
Right.
running things down to the wire. You have just big groups these days. Gray keeps acquiring little smaller groups. Gannett, Sinclair.
Sinclair Media was the one I was thinking.
Sinclair is exactly. The right wing leaning,
and writing content for. I mean, I'm sure you at some point have seen the video where it's the same.
The Deadspin video.
Exactly. Cut between a ton of different markets. It's really sad. And
and there's been a lot of reporting on those must-run pieces where the national desk sends out, okay, you have to run the story about Benghazi or something like that. There's been cases about that. Same thing with Fox News. The media landscape has been irreconcilably distorted at this point, and we see it in how people consume the news. But I truly think that the way facts are incontrovertible. It's the way you present them and what you include in and omit that matters the most. And for me, it's I think my job is to include as much as possible.
Well, and I mean, and it's a sad fact in today's journalism that it's so much about the money, and if it bleeds, it leads, and people will always pay for or I should say, companies are trying to figure out, and I'm not talking about just like local newspapers. I'm also talking about companies like Android Police, are trying to figure out how to put more, butts in the seats and advertising and, sponsored and native content, which I know Android Police doesn't do a ton of.
We've been doing a little bit more of that, admittedly. And, we've also been chasing this SEO dragon, as it were.
Well, don't even get me started on SEO.
Yeah. Well, it's a matter of fact that all of our most of our stuff comes from Google, where it's the Discover feed. Our readership just comes from there. It's not necessarily any of the traditional social media. Some of the, I think maybe most of tech would be of that, except for the larger players like CNET, where they have a better mix of traffic. But still, most of our traffic comes from Google. It's Google, so we have to play heavily.
Oh yeah, and as much as I know Android Police probably has a dedicated loyal following. I know a number of companies, like a lot of the future properties, they have dedicated loyal followings. You see the same names in the comment sections, article after article, which is awesome. But the reality is that we need more butts in the seats, and so it's just one of those. It's hard to weigh the balance between journalistic integrity and money, unfortunately.
Well, butts in the seats or just money, and people have been very much used to getting free information for free.
And by the way, thank you to my patrons.
Yeah. So. Let's not, when we talk about free information, it's the free flow of information, not necessarily describing the monetary nature of it. And having to when people don't necessarily appreciate the amount of work, time, and physical resources that get put into this stuff. and when it's devalued by controvertible opinions and other things, just there's a lot of pollution that just makes it
it makes it hard to get the real information out there,
the real information and valued.
And valued, and and because I think what you were alluding to is the fact that like anybody can put up a website and say like this XYZ fact is absolutely not true, even though it's absolutely true, and so like you run into that issue too. Like if you have and that's also kind of a good thing, because then you can have blogs that like really super niche down into something like. You can have a blog dedicated to Android. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the launchers. You could have a blog that's dedicated to Android launchers. And while that's great for people that love Android launchers, that's probably a few eyeballs that are being pulled away from sites like Android Police. So, and so it's kind of like a good thing, because, you can get stuff that's really tailored to you, but it's also kind of a bad thing because, the bigger sites can't necessarily afford to niche down that much.
Yeah.
It's also, as a reader, harder to distinguish between what is a knowledgeable voice versus one that maybe is, at least in
versus mine is what you're saying. I get it. Yeah, totally. But
well, yeah. You kind of hope that that your reader, when a new source comes in, it's supplementary as opposed to displacement when it comes to their media diet. But we have finite time and finite readership, so you make the best of it as you can, and you keep adapting towards whatever that next black box of parameters that you want to have to meet. Is that's
the moving target?
It is.
So how do you think, or I should say, do you think we're going to find that right balance in between like journalistic integrity and money ultimately? I mean, are we obviously we're still searching for it. The question is can it be found?
The nature of the internet, where especially considering how anonymous people might behave, or they feel like they're entitled to behave in that way, and not
great. So you have to bring up that I'm not verified too. No, I'm just kidding.
Not suffer repercussions for it. It's always been there, and it's been growing influence, and we've seen a lot of that come up in elections, not just the 2016 election or the 2020 election, but all over the world. And that has resulted in new populist parties forming. So like I think we're dealing with something much more systemic. What does good journalism, what can good journalism do in that? Well, it's part of a balanced breakfast, but I think
back to food.
Yeah,
back to food. It all comes back to food, honestly.
Yeah, but it's part. It can't just be good journalism. It also has to be
good food.
Good food, and also just kind of you're towing that line of trying to correct the record, or discipline certain actors, or it's not. Let's just say that the answer should be delivered by someone far above my pay grade.
Fair enough.
I think the truest thing we could say is that journalism gets broken down easily into your sugar, salt, fats, and acids. And
you need those certain fats in order to absorb the certain vitamins,
right?
As I've learned.
Yeah. So, and none of us here are doctors, but at least one of us is a journalist.
But I played one on TV. No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I play one on TV.
No, it's actually really fascinating because since you have a journalism educational background, it's because honestly you don't get that much like from where we are. Like half the people that we talk to are just people that are like really smart with tech. and kind of learned the journalism stuff along the way. Whereas with you, it's kind of the other way around. Like, you came up in the world of journalism, and like, you happen to like smartphones. So I think that's I think it's really cool to be able to sit down and have these kind of conversations with you, because I don't know what I'm doing. I consider myself a journalist only in that other people consider me a journalist. But like, it's really hard for me to justify that in my own brain space, because like I know people that are far more journalistic than I am. I like to think that I emulate their good points, their good properties, but I do not have a background in this. Like, the closest I got was writing for the high school paper, which was a lot more years ago than I care to admit.
Journalism is all about telling a good and true story and putting in the work to make sure that it is as good and true as it is. And I think a lot of humans, some of them have those skills inherently, but I think those are easily teachable skills and easily absorbed, and you can pass those along.
But they're so easy to ignore in a world of Twitter and Facebook. Like, it's just like, and I see that a lot in sports media, because I follow baseball and to an extent hockey, although the Blackhawks suck again, so maybe not so much anymore. But like, I see it a lot in sports media where like a lot of journalists will be trying to break the story of a player getting traded or a player being injured, and they don't always take the time to kind of like double check and make sure that this is actually happening before they tweet out something, just because the first one to tweet gets the eyeballs. And you get that less in tech, because like you have leakers. You've got John Prosser, you've got Evan Blass. Like, they're obviously, they want to be first in their field. If someone's going to leak what the new iPhone's going to look like, they obviously want to get it there first. But like, when it comes to like, hey, we just found out that the TCL is going to have, the Android 12 beta, then that's not really all that time sensitive. But like, you see it in a lot of other areas where people are like trying to break stories, and they don't always take the time to make sure that they're telling the true story, as you put it.
Well, it's all that kind of stuff is all about inside baseball, not to layer puns on top of each other.
Right. No, we get it.
It's all, who basically. And, developing relationships is a key part of sourcing out journalism, but it's, that in itself is kind of another skill entirely. And, it's all about who you trust or what you trust. And
I think to an extent, it's also, owning your mistakes too. Android Central recently had a thing where they published a story based on a leak without, thoroughly fact checking it. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it had something to do with the Pixel 5a. And like confirming that it was like not, I think they said that it was canceled or something like that. But Daniel Bader stood up and said, hey, we messed up. I own this. And like, even a week later, he was still referencing the mistake and still apologizing for it. And I think that's what you got to do.
I do remember that little event, because we were one of the first ones to get a statement from Google saying, "Oh, it's not been canceled," and I don't know what happened behind the scenes to make who they were relying on.
I don't either.
For whom we're in the first place.
I'm not nearly high enough in that pay grade to know that.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, I don't know how much responsibility Android said. I think, in terms of owning that, in terms of, saying that we relied on a source, or we interpreted this to mean that instead of this, is a good move in general. It's better to be conciliatory than, not always, as we've learned from certain people who have occupied the White House. But it's better to be conciliatory than persistently brash and aggressively victorious.
I think
Go ahead,
that
Cliff. I'm sorry.
journalistic integrity is something that you can't teach, but it is something that um, builds and lends and gives credibility to not only the author but also to the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's carried on even when maybe people cycle out, as long as it's continued from within. But what's, I think it's harder to teach and harder to change is in this world of perceived impermanence in media, where you have things like Snapchat disappearing social media posts, where people think that they can just say something, or they think that they're anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
and think they can say things or do things without consequences. How do you teach them to triage, their news, all the news that they have coming at them, from all these different sources, when you have, I think, even when you're talking about if you're talking about news outlets, that they can say that they don't have a specific political bend, but for the most part, if you look at history, they always have at some point. They've had a journalistic viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It's just maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more defined now. But okay, so you have those which already have their own bend, and then you have things like the Sinclairs, or you have like the blogs lower down, where some people have just abandoned regular broadcast media and print media, and they're just getting things from
From where?
like your Blaze and all that, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. How do you teach people to value things, when that are true, that are facts rather than somebody's truth, because there is a difference.
Right.
And because people that are Jules' age and maybe even older have grown up in a world where you don't have a lot of physical media. You don't read most people don't read newspapers anymore. Um, and even you're buying more products and services than you are that are all digital. So there's really no concrete, I don't know, tangibleness to it. I just, in that, again, going back to that world of impermanence, how do you teach them to value things that are solid?
Well, I think information is impermanent in itself, and if you well,
And
to
fluid.
be frank, if you look at the whole of reality, everything you say is permanent is actually just temporary,
Unless it's on YouTube.
unless it's on YouTube. But even that, that's maybe some things are. It's often the exception rather than the rule that things um, last longer than they should, I guess. Um, everything is temporary, and you know that includes the value or the certain attitudes as to what this news item is. You
Yeah.
know, we've seen change. This is lots of this goes into like psychology and sociology. Like we've seen the shift in public attitude towards LGBT rights and towards war, towards um, the economy, where we have this growing sense that our growing uh, inequities as we come out of not just this recession, but the 2008.
Yeah.
So,
Really, since the
yeah,
80s, honestly, that's been something, the
that
inequity has
too.
been. Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, in terms, like, you have to really you have to take account of the information that you receive. A lot of influence goes into word of mouth, and that's with friends and family and sometimes even strangers. A lot of discussing the news. Um, it's been the same case as has been found with the vaccine. A lot of vaccine hesitancy has been kind of dissolved by having your kids talk to you about it, or your friends. It's the same thing with everything else, including the news. So, yeah. I guess talking about it and make being honest and open about how you feel about these things, and letting the evidence kind of show the path for you is important. Yeah.
Love it. Well, this podcast got a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be.
Say,
I'll be honest.
I feel like Marty McFly.
Time to dump a load of hot sauce and spend 15 hours on the toilet afterwards.
Right. Well, I mean, this is good. These are the kind of conversations that we need to be having, and I am stoked that Jules was able to come on and have this conversation with us. And speaking of Jules. Jules, now it is time for you to go ahead and let all of our listeners know where they can find you on the socials and on the internets, and just pimp your shit, man.
Jules.Wang. Basically, that's all you need to know. Jules,
which is awesome.
Wang.
I love that. That's so great. So
has all my links.
That's right up there with dead.technology. But honestly, it's even better. So I salute you. And so
salute you back.
Yeah, awesome. So so visit Jules.Wang. So and you can see Jules's Wang. But sorry, I had to say it. No, I'll cut you for that. No, so visit Jules.Wang and get all of his stuff. He's with Pocket Android Police and Pocket Now, and you got his LinkedIn, his Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Love it. Do you have a YouTube channel? Like, what are you doing there?
I just post the occasional drone video these days, and then other kind of ephemera, as they like to say. Sure.
I'm digging the drone. I'm looking at the trains drone video. Love it. Link in the show notes to all this stuff. So, but anyway, Jules, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with us about journalism and reporting the news, because that's what you do with your work, with your days. So we appreciate it.
It's when you talk about phones, it's not that significant, but one of these days maybe we'll talk about more significant, life-threatening stuff.
Well, hopefully not life-threatening. This is all right. You know what? I better walk us out.
2017 with a note.
I better walk us out of here before we start getting feel physically threatened. But anyway, thank you, Jules.
I want to just say you're a great colleague. You're a better friend.
Oh. Thank
you for inviting me.
All right. Thank you for coming on, and thank you, Cliff, for joining us. This was fun having a third voice, I should say, a second host, third voice on this podcast. And I want to thank all of our listeners for coming on and for joining us, and as always, for giving us the benefit of the doubt.
And stopping recording.
I'm going to end the broadcast before I forget this.